Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something incredibly popular and I think for good reason. James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Oh yeah, that one's everywhere.
It really is. And it's not just another self-help book telling you to just try harder. It feels much more practical.
hmm It's a guide, really, for building the good habits, breaking the bad ones,
Yeah,
and it digs into the why behind them.
exactly. And the success is just huge, isn't it? New York Times bestseller, what, over 20 million copies sold?
Yeah, that definitely says something. People are clearly connecting with it, looking for maybe something more than just willpower.
Right. They want a framework, something that actually makes sense and works.
And Clear delivers that. It's
Yeah.
very structured.
Absolutely. And right at the core is this really powerful idea about small improvements. Getting just 1% better each day.
Seems like almost nothing, doesn't it? 1%.
It does, but he shows how it compounds. Over a year, that tiny daily improvement, it doesn't just make you a bit better, it makes you, what is it, like 37 times better?
Something like that, yeah. Mathematically.
Yeah.
It really highlights the power of consistency, even with tiny steps.
It totally changes how you think about big goals, makes them seem less daunting.
It's that compounding principle, like in finance, but for, personal growth.
Yeah.
Little investments in yourself.
Yeah, well put. Sometimes those small steps even lead to unexpected bigger jumps, right? It's
Yeah.
not always smooth.
Exactly. Progress isn't always linear.
So today, our mission really is to dig into these core principles from Clear. We want to understand them and help you, the listener, figure out how you can actually apply them for real change.
Yeah, get practical. Understand the mechanics so you know which levers to pull, basically.
Okay, so he starts with this foundation, the four-step habit loop. What are the pieces of that?
Right, the loop. It's got 4 stages. Cue, craving response, and reward. It's like a cycle.
Okay.
So the cue is the trigger, the thing that kicks it off. Could be a time, a place, an emotion, another action. It signals your brain, hey, potential reward ahead.
Got it. The prompt, then what?
Then comes the craving. This is the motivation, the desire. It's often not for the habit itself, but for the feeling it gives you.
Ah, okay. So you don't crave checking Instagram. You crave the, I don't know, distraction or connection it brings.
Precisely. The cue triggers that anticipation,
Yeah.
that want.
And then you actually do the thing.
Yeah, that's the response. The habit itself could be an action, like grabbing a coffee, or even a thought pattern, or maybe not doing something, like procrastinating.
Okay. And the last part, the bit that keeps it going.
That's the reward, the
Oh.
payoff. It satisfies that craving and tells your brain, yep, let's do that again next time the cue pops up.
Yeah.
It reinforces the whole loop.
So cue, craving, response, reward. Seems simple enough on the surface.
It does, but understanding it is key. Because Clear says you can change any habit by tweaking one or more of these steps.
How so?
Well, to build a good habit, you want to make the cue obvious, the craving attractive, the response easy, and the reward satisfying. And to break a bad habit, you do the opposite. Make the cue invisible, the craving unattractive, the response difficult, and the reward unsatisfying.
Ah, I see. So you're working with your brain's wiring, not just fighting it.
Exactly. You're sort of redirecting those natural tendencies.
That makes a lot of sense. And this leads right into his 4 laws of behavior change, doesn't it?
It does. They're basically the actionable strategies based on that loop.
Yeah.
The practical how-to.
Right. So law number 1, make it obvious. That's tweaking the cue. How does that work?
Yeah, this is all about your environment. Clear calls it environment design. Basically, make the triggers for your good habits really visible, really hard to miss.
Like his example of putting a book on your pillow if you want to read more before bed.
Exactly. It's right there. A clear visual cue. Hard to ignore when you're getting into bed. Makes the desired action stand out.
Okay, simple but effective. And for bad habits, make the cue invisible.
You got it. Reduce exposure. If you want to eat less junk food, get it off the counter, hide it in the pantry, or better yet, don't buy it if the cue isn't there.
The habit's less likely to even start. Makes sense. Make the environment support you?
Right. That's law 1.
Okay. Law 2, make it attractive. This targets the craving part. How do we make doing the good stuff more appealing?
Yeah, this is about motivation. And a really cool technique he introduces is temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling.
Okay, what's that?
It's basically linking something you want to do with something you need to do, or maybe should do. Pairing the habit you're trying to build with something you already enjoy.
Oh, interesting.
Well, say you want to exercise more, but you also love watching a certain show.
Okay.
You can make a rule. You only get to watch that show while you're on the treadmill or doing your workout.
So the reward you already like the show, gets tied directly to the habit you're building,
Yeah.
makes the workout seem less like a chore.
Exactly. It leverages your existing desires to make the new habit more attractive. Pretty clever, right?
Yeah, that is clever. Okay, law 3, make it easy. This one's about the response, the actual action. How do we simplify? This law is all about reducing friction. We naturally drift towards the path of least resistance.
Hmm.
So make your good habits require less effort.
Less activation energy.
Precisely. So if you want to meditate, don't just think about it. Lay out the cushion the night before, or set up your workout clothes before you go to bed. Small things that remove a step.
Okay, lower the barrier to entry. And he talks about implementation intentions here too, right? That sounds a bit formal.
It sounds formal, but it's super practical. It's just about making a really specific plan. When, where, how.
Like pre-deciding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The format is, I will do the habit at specific time in specific location. So not just, I'll journal more, but I will write in my journal for 5 minutes at 8 p.m. in the living room after dinner.
It makes it concrete. Takes the guesswork out, maybe reduces the decision fatigue in the moment.
That's the idea. It almost puts it on autopilot. Makes it much easier to just do it.
Got it. Obvious, attractive, easy. Now the last one, law 4. Make it satisfying. That's the reward. Why is this payoff so important?
Because our brains are wired to repeat things that feel good. If a habit ends with satisfaction, we're far more likely to do it again. It closes the loop positively.
So we need some kind of immediate positive reinforcement.
Ideally, yes. And one powerful way Clear suggests is habit tracking. Just the simple act of checking off a box or marking an X on a calendar after you do the habit.
I can see that. And makes the progress visible, right? Gives you a little dopamine hit, maybe.
Exactly. It shows you're making progress, building momentum. You don't want to break the chain. It's surprisingly motivating.
Does the reward have to be big?
Not at all. It just needs to feel good enough to reinforce the action. The satisfaction from tracking can be enough. Or maybe it's just the feeling of accomplishment itself after a workout, or a small, healthy treat after sticking to your eating plan for a week. The key is that positive feedback.
Right, reinforce the behavior. So those are the 4 laws. Make it obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying, really practical stuff.
Definitely a solid framework.
But then Clear takes it a step further, doesn't he? He talks about identity-based habits. What's the shift there?
Yeah, this is really crucial for making changes stick long term. He argues that instead of focusing only on the outcomes you want,
Like losing weight or running a race.
right, you should focus on the identity you want to embody. Ask yourself, who is the type of person that could achieve this goal? What kind of identity do they have?
So instead of I want to run a marathon, it's more like I want to become a runner.
Exactly. Or instead of I want to lose 10 pounds, it's I want to become a healthy person or a healthy eater.
How does that help?
Because when you start to see yourself as that type of person, your habits become actions that reinforce that identity. Running isn't just something you do, it's something a runner does. It aligns with who you are or who you're becoming.
So the habits prove the identity, and the identity makes the habits feel more natural, more authentic.
Precisely. It becomes a positive feedback loop. Every time you do the habit, you're casting a vote for that identity. It shifts the focus from external goals to internal change.
That feels much more powerful for lasting change. Because goals end, right? You run the marathon, then what? But being a runner, that's ongoing.
That's the key insight. True behavior change is identity change. When your actions align with your self-image, they're much more likely to endure.
Okay, that's a big one. Now, there's another concept that I think a lot of people experience, that feeling of working hard but seeing nothing. The plateau of latent potential.
Ah, yes, the plateau. That's that frustrating phase where you're putting in the effort, you're doing the reps, but the results aren't showing up yet.
Yeah, it feels like you're spinning your wheels. Super discouraging.
Totally. And it's often where people give up right before things are about to click.
So what's happening there?
Clear uses the analogy of an ice cube in a cold room. You start raising the temperature. 28 degrees, 29, 30, 31. Nothing looks different. But energy is building up. Then you hit 32 degrees.
And it starts to melt. The change becomes visible.
Exactly. All that effort, all that heat you were putting in was accumulating potential. It wasn't wasted, even though you couldn't see it. It's the same with habits. Progress is building under the surface.
So the message is, keep going, even when you don't see immediate results.
Yes, patience and persistence are critical here. Understand that progress often isn't linear. There will be plateaus. But if you stick with the process, trust that the compound effect is working, you'll eventually break through.
That's reassuring, actually, because that plateau is real. It's good to know it's often part of the process, not a sign of failure.
Absolutely. Managing expectations around that is really important for sticking with it. Consistency over intensity, especially early on.
Okay, so let's sort of wrap this up. We've dug into atomic habits, looked at the power of those tiny 1%
The
changes.
compounding effect.
Right. We explored the habit loop cue, craving, response, reward, and how the four laws help us manage it. Make it obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying.
Practical tools.
Then we talked about that deeper level, shifting to identity-based habits, focusing on who you want to become.
Which makes change much more sustainable.
And finally, understanding that plateau of latent potential and the need to just keep going even when results aren't obvious yet.
Yeah, trusting the process. And I think the book's real strength is how it pulls all this together. Behavioral science, practical tips into a really clear, usable system.
It really is actionable, isn't it? You finish reading it or listening to this and you feel like you have things you can actually do.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, sure, some folks who read a lot of self-help might see familiar ideas,
True, some concepts overlap with other works.
but the way Clear synthesizes it, the framework he provides,
Yeah.
is just incredibly effective and easy to grasp.
Agreed. The structure and the examples make it really stick. So, as we finish up this deep dive, maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Think about one small habit, just one, something you want to build or maybe something you want to break. Using these principles, what's one tiny thing, one truly atomic change you could make today, right now even? And as you think about that tiny action, also consider what kind of person does that action? What identity are you starting to build or reinforce with that single small step?